Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a story that is, it's one of the greatest scientific triumphs in history, but it's also so much more than that.
It really is. We're talking about Marie Curie, of course.
The only person ever to win Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields, physics and chemistry.
Right. And we're not just going to, run through a biography. The real story here, the one we want to unpack, is this incredible dual burden she carried.
A dual burden.
Yeah. On one hand, you have the scientific revolution. She started radioactivity, discovering radium, polonium, just fundamentally changing our idea of matter.
And on the other hand,
On the other, there's this relentless, just vicious institutional and political battle she had to wage simply to be seen as an equal.
and our sources for this really track her entire journey, from her birth as Maria Skłodowska in Warsaw in 1867, all the way to her final resting place in the Paris Pantheon in 1995.
It's an incredible arc, and our mission today is to show you how she pulled off this staggering amount of work under a level of pressure that's almost impossible to imagine today. We're talking deep-seated xenophobia, gender prejudice.
So she wasn't just fighting to understand the atom.
No, she was fighting the system. Her life is this perfect and often painful illustration of how profound merit can struggle mightily against powerful, entrenched prejudice. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. She's born Maria Skłodowska in 1867 in Warsaw.
Yes, and her family background is key. Both her parents were teachers. They valued education above almost everything else. So she grew up with this reverence for knowledge.
But right from the start, she hits a wall.
A huge wall. A couple of them, actually. First, you have the Russian control of Poland, which was systematically trying to suppress Polish intellectual life. But for Maria, it was worse.
Because she was a woman.
Exactly. She was brilliant. She finishes her studies with top honors in 1883. But the kind of higher education she needed, a real university that could lead to a research career, was completely closed off to women in Poland.
So she has the brains, but no path forward. What does she do?
This is where you see her tenacity for the first time. She makes what you could only really call a radical, long-term pact with her sister.
A pact.
Yeah, this is the period we call the 8-year sacrifice. From 1883 to 1891, for 8 years, she worked as a governess.
8 years?
8 years. And the money she earned wasn't for her. It was to pay for her older sister, Branya's, medical studies in Paris.
Wow. So she puts her own dream on hold for almost a decade to fund her sister's.
It's an incredible sacrifice. And it just goes to show you, her eventual arrival at the Sorbonne wasn't some easy, privileged path. It was a right she purchased with 8 years of her own life and labor.
And she wasn't just, waiting around during those 8 years, was she?
Oh, not at all. She was devouring books, teaching herself advanced math, physics. And she got involved in something called the Flying University.
The Flying University, what's that?
It was basically an illegal, underground university in Warsaw, a clandestine network dedicated to educating young Polish people, especially women, who were shut out of the official system.
So she's risking arrest just to learn and to teach.
Yes. And she's teaching peasant children, reading with working-class women. This is where you see the seed of her belief that knowledge has to be shared, that it should be used to lift people up. It's a theme that comes back in a huge way later.
Okay, so finally, in 1891, it's her turn. She's 24. She moves to Paris.
She moves to Paris, and her sister Branya now helps support her. But think about the challenges. She's got the language barrier. She's been out of formal education for 6 years.
And she was poor, right? I've read stories about her fainting from hunger.
Absolutely. Living in a tiny, unheated attic room. But that kind of struggle, which would break most people, it seemed to just sharpen her focus.
And her results at the Sorbonne were just stellar.
Beyond stellar.
Yeah.
She finished first in her physics degree in 1893, first. And then she gets a second degree in mathematics in 1894 and finishes second in that class.
Just incredible. And it's that academic success that leads her to Pierre Curie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She meets him in 1894. He's already a well-known physicist. But their connection, from everything we've read, wasn't this, whirlwind romance.
It was an intellectual connection.
An instantaneous intellectual affinity. They just clicked. They shared this deep dedication to science and a total aversion to fame, money, all the superficial stuff.
A true partnership.
It really was.
Mm-hmm.
They get married in July 1895, and the perfect anecdote about them is what they did with their wedding money.
Let me guess. Not a big party.
No. They used it to buy 2 bicycles so they could go on long rides together through the countryside. That was their idea of a honeymoon.
That's a great image. The two of them on their bikes about to pedal straight into a complete redefinition of physics.
which is exactly what happens next. The revolution really kicks off in 1896. Henri Becquerel had just discovered these mysterious rays coming from uranium salts.
The ones that fogged up photographic plates, even in a dark drawer.
Right. And Marie, who's just finished her degrees and is looking for a PhD topic, decides to investigate this phenomenon. And this is where she has her first truly revolutionary insight.
So what did she do differently?
Well, she realized no one had actually measured the intensity of these rays systematically. So she uses this clever device that Pierre had helped develop to measure the faint electrical currents the rays produced in the air.
And she starts testing everything she can get her hands on.
Every known element, tons of minerals.
Yeah.
She finds that thorium also gives off these rays. But then she notices something critical.
What was it?
Two things. First, the strength of the rays depended only on the amount of uranium or thorium. That's it. Didn't matter what chemical compound it was in.
Okay, so it wasn't a chemical reaction.
Exactly. And second, it wasn't affected by heat or light or pressure. So her conclusion was, well, it was staggering for the time.
That the radiation had to be coming from the atom itself.
From inside the atom itself. Remember, in 1898, the atom is supposed to be this tiny, indivisible little ball. Her idea completely shatters that model.
And she gives it the name we still use today.
She coins the term radioactivity. That's her word. But her experiments immediately pointed to something even bigger.
The pitch blend.
The pitch blend. The uranium ore. She found it was 4 or 5 times more radioactive than the amount of uranium in it could explain.
So there had to be something else in there.
Something unknown. And something incredibly radioactive. This is the moment that Pierre gets so excited he drops his own research on crystals, his life's work, to join her full-time.
And this is when they start working in the infamous shed.
The shed, yes.
Yeah.
The French scientific establishment basically offered them this dilapidated wooden shack.
It sounds awful. I've read descriptions of it.
It was worse. It used to be a dissecting room. It had a leaky glass roof, a dirt floor, no heating. The famous German chemist Wilhelm Ostwald visited and said it looked like a cross between a stable and a potato shed.
A potato shed. And this is where they're about to discover new elements. What does that say about the institutional support they were getting?
It says they were getting almost none. It shows you how marginalized Marie was. A woman, a foreigner. The system just wasn't willing to invest in her. They succeeded in spite of the system, not because of it.
And the work itself was just brutal physical labor.
It was immense.
Yeah.
They got 7 tons of pitchblende waste from a mine in Bohemia, and Marie spent 4 years processing it, 20 kilograms at a time, with huge vats and corrosive chemicals.
She wrote about stirring boiling masses of material with an iron rod almost as big as she was.
For days on end. She said she'd be broken with fatigue. They were living, as she put it, like in a dream, just completely consumed by the work.
But the discovery started coming.
They did. In July 1898, they announced the first new element, polonium.
Named after her homeland, Poland.
A very deliberate, patriotic act. Then, in December of that same year, they discovered radium, from the Latin word for ray.
Announcing it as one thing, they had to prove it.
That was the real challenge. It took her 4 more years of this back-breaking work, but in 1902, she finally isolated 1/10 of a gram of pure radium chloride.
A decigram. After processing 7 tons of rock.
It's almost unimaginable.
Right.
But there was a kind of romance to it all for them. Marie wrote about how they would go back to the shed at night.
To see the samples glowing.
Yes, she called them feebly luminous silhouettes. She said it was a lovely sight. They were literally bathed in the glow of their discovery with no idea it was slowly killing them.
That incredible work leads directly to her doctoral thesis in 1903 and then to the Nobel Prize.
The 1903 Nobel Prize in Physics, yes. But the story behind that prize is just a perfect example of the institutional bias she was up against.
So it wasn't straightforward.
Not at all. The prize was awarded to them and to Henri Becquerel. But the initial nomination from 4 very powerful members of the French Academy was only for Pierre and Becquerel.
They just left her out.
Completely, as if she was just a lab assistant. They knew she had done the chemical oscillation, coined the term radioactivity, driven the whole thing, but she was a woman.
So what happened?
Pierre happened. He found out, and he told the committee, in no uncertain terms, that he would not accept the award if Marie wasn't included. He forced their hand.
That's an incredible act of integrity. But even then, the inequality was still there, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. You could see it in the prize money. Becquerel got a full half. Marie and Pierre had to split the other half. It just reinforced this idea that she wasn't quite seen as their equal.
And Pierre also famously turned down the Legion of Honor.
He did. He said, "I need a laboratory, not a decoration." It was always about the work for them.
But that partnership, that incredible collaboration, was cut short so tragically in 1906.
It's just a brutal moment in her life, a total shock. Pierre was killed instantly in a road accident in Paris, run over by a horse-drawn cart.
She's only 38, a widow with 2 young daughters.
The devastation was immense. But her response was pure Marie Curie. The government offered her a widow's pension.
And she refused it.
Refused it flat out. She saw it as charity. Instead, she demanded the right to take over his post at the Sorbonne.
Which was unprecedented.
Completely.
Yeah.
But her scientific authority was undeniable at that point, so they gave it to her. In November 1906, she became the first woman ever to teach at the Sorbonne. An incredible breakthrough.
So she smashes that barrier. And then we get to the 1911 Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Her second Nobel.
Yeah.
And this one was different.
How so?
This one was awarded to her, and her alone, for the isolation of pure radium. She becomes the first and only person to win Nobels in 2 different sciences.
So this was total, unshared, international validation of her genius.
Yes. And she needed that validation, because at the exact moment the world was giving her its highest honor, her adopted country, France, was trying to tear her life apart.
This is the period of just intense institutional and public backlash.
It really is. The French conservative establishment saw her as a threat. Here's this powerful, secular foreign woman at the top of French academia. They did not like it.
And the first major battleground was the French Academy of Sciences in 1910.
Right. She ran for a vacant seat. And the election turned into this national political war. It was the conservative, Catholic, nationalist side versus the liberal, secular, Republican side.
And Marie was the symbol of the liberal side.
Absolutely. So the right-wing press just unleashed on her. They launched these disgusting xenophobic attacks, calling her the foreign-born mother, starting false rumors that she was Jewish, which they used as a slur.
And the argument was basically that she wasn't truly French, and so she didn't deserve a place in this prestigious French institution.
That was it. Prejudice over merit. And it worked. She lost the election by just 2 votes.
2 votes. It's a stunning rejection.
It was a huge professional snub. But what came next, in late 1911, was so much worse. It was all-out war on her personal life.
The Langevin affair.
The Langevin affair. She had started a romantic relationship with Paul Langevin, a brilliant physicist who had been one of Pierre's students. He was married, but separated from his wife.
And the press got a hold of their letters.
They got a hold of letters, or maybe forgeries of letters. The sources are unclear, and it just exploded. The nationalist press went into a frenzy.
Can they put all the blame on her?
100%.
Yeah.
The gender double standard was on full display. Langevin was the Frenchman led astray. She was the foreign homewrecker. They called her the widow who was tarnishing her dead husband's name. All the old xenophobic and anti-Semitic lies came roaring back.
It wasn't just in the newspapers, though. It got physical.
Became dangerous. An angry mob gathered outside her house, yelling, throwing stones. She had to flee with her 2 daughters, Irene and Eve, and take refuge with friends. It was terrifying.
And right in the middle of all this chaos, she gets the news about the 1911 Nobel Prize.
The timing is just surreal. The world is celebrating her, and her neighbors are trying to run her out of town. The scandal was so bad that a member of the Nobel Committee actually wrote to her.
What did he say?
He suggested she should decline the prize, or at least wait to accept it until her name was cleared.
Wow. So even the Nobel Committee was basically saying her private life could invalidate her scientific work?
And Marie's response was just perfect. She wrote back and said, essentially, that the prize was for her discovery of polonium and radium, and she refused to accept that slander about her private life had anything to do with the value of her scientific work.
She completely separated the two.
She drew a hard line, and she went to Stockholm and gave her Nobel lecture where she very clearly laid out her specific contributions, cementing her own intellectual authorship on the world stage.
But the toll of that whole affair must have been immense.
It almost broke her. She suffered a complete physical and nervous collapse after she got back from Sweden. She spent nearly a year recovering in secret. It was a brutal, brutal period.
But then, just a few years later, World War I breaks out. And this gives her a chance to, in a way, answer her critics definitively.
It really does. Her response to the war was immediate and total. She was determined to put her science at the service of France.
And her first move was to secure the country's radium supply.
Yes. France's entire stock was basically that 1 gram in her lab. She personally took it in a heavy lead box on a train to Bordeaux to keep it safe from the advancing German army.
A national treasure that she had created.
Exactly. Then she comes back to Paris and has this brilliant idea. She realizes that X-rays could save thousands of soldiers' lives by helping surgeons find bullets and shrapnel.
But X-ray machines weren't exactly portable back then.
No. So she figures out how to make them portable. She fundraises, gets donations of equipment and cars, and converts them into mobile X-ray vans.
These were the famous petites Curies.
The little Curies, that's what the soldiers call them. She equipped 20 of these mobile units and set up 200 stationary radiology centers near the front lines.
And she didn't just organize it, she was out there herself.
She was right there in the thick of it.
Yeah.
She learned to drive, learned basic auto mechanics, taught herself anatomy so she could read the X-rays. And she and her daughter, Irene, who was only 17, drove these vans to the front.
Putting themselves in incredible danger, not just from the war, but from the radiation.
Completely heedless of the radiation danger. They were working in mud and cold, saving lives. And you have to see this as her ultimate rebuttal. Her science, which the nationalists had dismissed, was now undeniably and visibly saving French lives.
It was a functional, practical answer to all the questions about her loyalty.
The definitive answer. She proved her worth not with words, but with action.
After the war, her focus really shifts to building a lasting institution.
Yes, the Institut du Radium, the Radium Institute. Its construction was finished right before the war started, and her vision for it was brilliant.
What was so special about its structure?
She created a multidisciplinary model. There was one lab, which she led, for physics and chemistry research on radioactivity, and a second lab, led by a physician, focused on the biological and medical uses of radiation.
So she built a direct bridge from fundamental science to cancer treatment.
Right. From the lab bench to the hospital bed. She was transitioning radium from a scientific curiosity into a life-saving medical tool.
But she had to fight for funding, right? Even with her fame.
Constantly. Radium was incredibly expensive, so she had to become a fundraiser. This led to her famous tour of the United States in 1921.
Organized by an American journalist.
Yes, a woman named Missy Maloney. She launched a campaign, The Women of America, to raise $100,000 to buy 1 gram of radium for Marie's Institute.
And it was a huge success. President Harding himself presented it to her.
He did. And it's just amazing that a 2-time Nobel laureate had to rely on public donations, mostly from other women, to get the basic materials for her research.
But through all that fame, she remained famously humble.
Incredibly so. Einstein said she was the only one that fame has not corrupted. She was always focused on the science.
But that lifelong dedication to her science came at the ultimate cost.
It did. She died on July 4th, 1934, at age 66. The cause was aplastic anemia, a form of leukemia. It was a direct result of her decades of exposure to radiation.
Her work literally killed her.
Yes. And the physical evidence of that cost is still with us. It's chilling, really.
You mean her body and her notebooks?
Exactly. When they moved her and Pierre's remains to the Pantheon in 1995, making her the first woman to be interred there on her own merits, their coffins had to be lined with lead. Their bodies are still radioactive.
And her papers.
Her original notebooks, even her cookbook, are so contaminated that today you need to wear protective gear just to look at them. They're stored in lead-lined boxes. It's this tangible, physical manifestation of the price she paid for that knowledge.
It's a powerful legacy, and the Institut Curie continues that work today.
It does. It perpetuates her values. Multidisciplinarity, international cooperation, and a deep humanism. She remains this towering source of inspiration, especially for women in science.
So when you look back at her life, it's this extraordinary mix of world-changing discovery and at the same time this relentless persecution. She reached the absolute pinnacle of science, only to be almost destroyed by prejudice in her own adopted country.
She really did, and her triumph was that she never let that stop her. Which brings me back to a crucial ethical choice she and Pierre made, right at the beginning.
What was that?
They refused to patent their process for isolating radium. They believed the discovery belonged to everyone, that it had to be freely available to reduce human suffering.
They gave it away.
They gave it away. But when you think about the immense personal price she paid, her health, her life, the public attacks, having to work in a shed and beg for funding, it raises a really provocative question for us.
Which is,
what's the right balance between a scientist's selfless dedication to humanity and the practical need for institutional and maybe even financial protection? Protection that could shield them from the kind of neglect and attacks she endured.
you have to wonder if patenting the process might have given her the lab she deserved, maybe even extended her life. It's a fascinating thought about the real hidden costs of genius. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the luminous and costly legacy of Marie Curie.